Look at the beautiful spider.
At your leisure, go and see Bruce. Now, before we begin, I've got a few safety announcements to go over with you real quick. We do have life jackets on board for everyone. They're located in the cabinets at the back of both the upper and lower deck. I also have a bunch of them downstairs in the bilge. Now, we've been operating on these motors for a long, long time, over 140 years. We've never had an occasion to use a life jacket. I certainly don't plan on breaking tradition today, but just in case, they're very easy to get to. The crew and I
First large summer home built on the lake was built on that site where that large tan home now stands. It was called Maple Lawn, built on this site in 1870 for Shelton Sturgis. Now he and his brothers are business partners and each had summer homes in the area. But that mansion was torn down over a decade ago and this new home was built in its place. The Sturgis family were heavily involved in the grain storage and grain elevator business. Later they founded or consolidated a number of bins in Chicago. We are now passing a group of homes known as the Geneva Manor subdivision. The manor is built on 37 acres of the Levi Z. Leiter estate, which is known as Linden Lodge and dated back to 1879. Now, Leiter became partners with a man named Marshall Field and However, firemen, family, and servants were able to save the furnishings, the handsome wood trim, ornately carved mantelpieces, some of those staircases, and even the original blueprints to that house. Now, undeterred, Mr. Fairbank had work begin the following Monday morning to rebuild the home from its original plans. It stood here for the next 80 years and stayed in the Fairbank family for 4 generations until 1955 when it was torn down and the property subdivided. In 1895, a 5-hole golf course was added to the estate grounds. It was actually here on Mr. Fairbank's golf course that many of the millionaires living at the lake were introduced to the relatively new game of golf. Later that year, they established the Lake Geneva Country Club that we will see later on in the tour. Now, until now, I've got to ask you to use your imagination to picture what some of these estates looked like. However, for the next few miles of shoreline, most of the properties remain relatively intact and unchanged from when they were built in the heyday of our Newport of the West period. This was in reference to Newport, Rhode Island, the famous summer resort on the East Coast. The black top, the white home with red roof and chimneys is typical of the homes built during Lake Geneva's golden era. Black top was built in 1881 for John T. Lester, who was a prominent member of the Chicago Railroad trade. Now, all of the next 6 properties are especially interesting as they are currently or were at one point a part of the Wrigley estate. Under William and P.K. Wrigley, the family amassed vast business, sports, and real estate holdings. At the time of P.K.'s passing in 1977, the family's interests included the Wrigley Chewing Gum Company, the Chicago Cubs, Wrigley Field, the Wrigley Building in downtown Chicago, real estate holdings in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, and most of Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. Now, the first home on the Wrigley complex is called North Woodside. It's that white home with the green trim. It was constructed in 1876 for General Henry Shaw, who was president of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. Now, in later years, North Woodside was owned by Olaf Nelson T. Vander, who was credited with numerous inventions. One invention which proved to be quite successful was the sanitary milk bottle cap, which is that small cardboard disc fastening to top of old milk bottles. Now, it is said that this simple invention enabled Mr. T. Vander to retire here at the ripe old age of 26 in multi-millionaire. The next part of the estate is called Newport. The estate began in the 1880s as a small hunting lodge for architect Henry Gay. The remaining buildings on the estate. This home was actually just roughly 1/3 the size of the original. The next home is called Green Gables and was P.K. Wrigley's main residence at the time of his passing in 1977. However, this is not the original Green Gables. The original dated back to 1892. It also included 30 bedrooms and 20 bathrooms, many of which feature gold-plated fixtures. Now, that original home was torn down in 1955, and this new one was completed in 1966. At the time, it was considered state-of-the-art, as everything from the flagpole to the drapery was controlled electronically. Now, I know some of you might be thinking that the Wrigleys must have downsized when it came to this next home right here, but I am here to assure you that is not the case at all. That is just their pool house.
What, that's just the pool house?
That barn-shaped building with a brown gabled roof is the Wrigley Boathouse. It's a part of the original Green Gables estate and is the winter quarters for the Wrigley fleet. Right next door to that, that is the newest home on the Wrigley complex. It was completed in 2014 and is called Lakewood. That brown building is made up of a series of boathouses. It was built in 1910 to house 4 steam yachts. In 1906, for Norman W. Harris of the Harris Trust and Savings Bank in Chicago, which is today BMO Harris Bank. In 1920, the estate was purchased by Walton W. Shaw, co-founder of the Yellow Taxicab Company in Chicago, and was renamed the Stenning. In the 1930s, it was owned by Shaw's son-in-law, Daniel F. Pierkin Jr., who was president of the Morton Salt Company. The estate remained in the Shaw-Pierkin family for nearly 80 years before it was sold to an investment advisor named Richard Driehaus. Mr. Driehaus had that property meticulously restored in 1999, and as you can see, it's truly a fine example of historic preservation. That estate is now called Walworth Gardens today. Mr. Driehaus was a very generous man, having donated over $95 million to various charities through his foundation. Now, sadly, just earlier this year, Mr. Driehaus did pass away, but he was known locally for the lavish birthday party he would throw for himself every July with elaborate themes, famous entertainment, and over 1,000 of his closest friends. Now, each year, that party had a different theme. One of his more well-known parties was for his 66th birthday. He had a Route 66 themed birthday party. He had classic cars displayed all over that front lawn, and in the middle was a brand new Corvette. Now, when each of the guests arrived to the party, they all received a key. And I think that's kind of an odd party favor, but if your key started the car that night, happy birthday to you, it was yours to drive home. Mr. Suter borrowed a 3-ring circus tent from P.T. Barnum's Circus. The tent was erected on the site and heated so that construction could continue through the dead of winter. The house had to be finished on time because there was to be a surprise birthday present for Mrs. Bartlett in the spring. Homes on the bridge ahead of us, set up above the flat lawn, is an old mansion with a red roof and white columns known as Bonnie Gray. Bonnie Gray was built in 1889 for Judge Thomas F. Withrow and named for his daughter Bonnie. In 1897, Bonnie Gray was purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Mark A. Ryerson. The Ryerson family was in the lumber and steel business and had the good fortune of being heirs to one of the only lumber yards. The Ryersons were very generous supporters of many of Chicago's institutions, including the Art Institute, the Field Columbia Museum of Natural History, and the University of Chicago. Now, the Ryersons were big party hosts in their day, entertaining guests such as the Fords, the Firestones, the Rockefellers, Thomas Edison, and even Claude Monet. Now, because of the close friendship Ryerson had with Claude Monet, Ryerson is actually responsible for donating much of the French Impressionist artwork that's currently on display at the Art Institute of Chicago. 15th to September 15th. So they're going to be wrapping up their season in just a couple short days here. If you have any questions about the Mail Bowl or anything related to that, feel free to ask me and I can answer any questions that you have. The homes surrounding that large expanse of lawn are known as the 700 Club because all the homes share the address of Pure 700, a huge three-story mansion built in 1905 for the John Baptiste Scromes family, who once owned one of the largest distilleries in Chicago. That all-view estate once encompassed all of these 700 Club grounds, and that home stood in the clearing on the upper right of that lawn. Commute across the 8th fairway to their home by means of a golf cart. Now, this entire corner of the lake was once a large marsh called the Lower Duck Hole by early residents because of the many waterfowl they used to nest here. In the 1960s, a local realtor had 63 acres of natural wetland drained and dredged. He then developed this area into the Trinity Estates subdivision. Now, that grassy area coming into view was not intended as the front yard of those homes, but was actually planned as an aircraft landing strip. However, after one plane took off the chimneys off one of the homes and another landed upside down in the water, they had finally considered that it would and if they were on our tour today, they probably wouldn't recognize their home as it was expanded by adding 2 large wings on each end of that original structure. That current owner went to great lengths to preserve the original center section, which still has those hallmark 6 pillars. The next 20 or so homes we are passing are built on a small part of the estate of James Hobart Moore. The estate was called Laura Moore, named for his wife Laura. Mr. Moore and his brother William were business partners and venture capitalists. I might recognize some of the companies they organized, like the Diamond Match Company, the American Tinplate Company, the American Can Company, the Rock Island Railroad, and the National Biscuit Company, better known today as Nabisco. So you can actually thank Mr. Moore for your Oreo cookies. Mr. Moore built the estate in 1900 for approximately $3.5 million at a time when the average wage was just a few dollars per week. At that time, the estate included 400 acres and more than 30 buildings, including a huge Elizabethan-style mansion. Now, in addition to the main home, the estate also included a drive-through gate lodge with living quarters, a carriage house, a garage, a laundry building, 10 greenhouses, a large animal barn, 2 farm cottages, 3 chicken houses, and a partridge and a parrot tree. I do take a lot of questions about these next 2 homes right here, but there's not much that I can really tell you about them. They were built relatively recently and there's not a lot of history to them. The owners of these houses actually asked to remain anonymous, and we just want to respect their privacy. So most I can really tell you about these 2 homes right here is that one is blue and one is brown. Now, if I ever met the owners of these houses, I would ask them 2 questions. First of all, what do you do for a living? I would gladly be willing to go down that career path, but then I got a house like that. And my second question for them is, do you have a son or a grandson my age? Maybe like to go out to dinner sometime? The stately white home with a sloping green roof coming into view has been known as Fair Lawn since it was built in 1894 for the late Charles. That supported the unusual roof. Now, authentic to the last detail, beds actually hung from chains in the ceiling to prevent snakes from falling up the posts. Now, most incredible of all, is constructed without the use of a single nail or screw. Craftsmen used dovetail joints and long wooden pegs to hold the entire structure together. And after undertaking this extensive project, the Chandlers only lived here for 6 years when they sold the estate to Mr. and Mrs. John Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell was considered the Dean of Chicago Banking and was the president of the Continental Illinois National Bank at the age of 24. The property was then sold to Frederick Lewis Maytag II of the well-known Maytag Wash Machine Company. The Maytags lived in the estate for 2 decades, and this point of land is still referred to as Maytag Point. The Maytag sold the estate to a developer in 1948, and the property was then subdivided over the next 10 years. here, Mrs. George Canellis. Mr. Canellis was the founder and former owner of Andy's Candies, the internationally known manufacturers of the after-dinner mints and chocolates. Behind the gazebo and so much for coming out and joining us here on the lake. I'm going to be handing the mic back over to the captain as he takes us back to the city of Lake Geneva.
Yeah, let's hear it for Lauren. Great job, Lauren. Lauren's been working hard all summer long out here, and as our season starts to come to a close, we're going to actually be doing this until the end of October. So if you're back in the area in the next few weeks and the colors start popping on these beautiful trees, be sure to take another ride with us. It's absolutely gorgeous out here in the fall. I do want to talk about the house behind Pier 882. This was called Make a Miracle. The lady that built this was actually a struggling single mother in the early 80s. She was a waitress at a truck stop down in Chicago. She decided to get into the trucking industry after talking to a lot of the truckers there that came into her diner. She started New Age trucking, and obviously she was very successful at that. She used to have a little alcove when she owned the property that was right there on the walking path around the lake. She would encourage people to write down their hopes and dreams and hopes to inspire them to achieve the success that she was able to do that in her lifetime. And there's a beautiful home behind the black and white striped canopies here on the shoreline. It's got 13 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms in it. They were asking $13 million for this property last year. It just sold last month for $12.6. And you all know the actor Robert Downey Jr. from Iron Man and Avengers and stuff like that. Yeah, well, that's not his house. All right, I'm impressed you guys are still paying attention after 1 hour of us gabbing up here. That's great. Well, there's a few landmarks here in the city. I'm also going to point out that behind that tall tree over there, that cream-colored building, that is the Bella Vista Suites. Right down Wrigley Drive, that long building with the maroon capped roof, that is the Harbor Shores All Suites Resort, home of Gino's East Pizzeria. If you're looking for a little Chicago-style pizza to wet your whistle tonight, that'd be a great place. Nestled between those two buildings is the Baker House, that Queen Anne-style home, built back in 1884 for Robert Baker. He owned 25% of the J.I. Case Corporation out of Racine, Wisconsin. It's now a very popular tapas-style restaurant, allowing you to still access that beautiful building. The group of trees here in front of us, that is Flatiron Park, and this is where we hold a lot of our festivals throughout the year, including the Venetian Festival, which just concluded. It's going to be held there. There's going to be Winterfest in the end of January, where we have the National Snow Sculpting in the town here. They carve those beautiful sculptures during Winterfest. And I'd be remiss without mentioning the 9-story Geneva Tower. That condominium complex was built back in 1970 on the former site of the Geneva Hotel, which was Frank Lloyd Wright's largest commercial commission of his career. Now, city planners and residents weren't happy with the changing skyline that building posed, so they passed an ordinance shortly thereafter preventing future development from being built taller than the tallest tree. The boat passing us on the port side, this is our own Polaris, part of our fleet. She's usually docked right next to us at the pier here. I remember Lauren was talking about Otto Young and that beautiful home just now. That was his boat. The Polaris started out as Otto Young's beautiful boat out here, built in 1898 and received Boat Works. It's been on this lake ever since. And then finally, folks, the beautiful brick building we departed from, the Riviera Complex, completed in 1932 as a municipal project getting people back to work.